Welcome back to Hollywood at the High School. I'm Grace Houdek, and I'm with Tommy O'Haver.
Hi.
Let's begin. Okay, so you grew up in Indiana, correct? Was that different for you in any way? Because usually, like, filmmakers will, or it's easier in bigger cities like or LA or New York or Chicago. Was growing up in Indiana, like, a different experience, would you say? Or was it, like, harder to get into film because it's not as big or it's, like, more local?
Not necessarily. I mean, the thing is, growing up in Indiana, working in film always did seem like a fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think growing up I ever believed I could actually work on a film set. And it wasn't until I was at Indiana University and a friend of mine who was a couple years older, she went off and got a job as a PA on a film, and it made me realize, wow, I could actually do that. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, that's what I did. I moved out to LA a few months after I graduated from Indiana University and got a job as a PA on a film, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare.
I remember you talked about it at the Beacon Academy Awards of what you studied at Indiana, but could you remind me of what that was? Because I remember it wasn't directly film, it was journalism and something else.
Yeah, I studied, I majored in journalism and film studies. It was actually majored in journalism and comp lit with a focus on film studies, meaning I had to write watch a lot of movies and write a lot of papers about film. I took classes in French cinema, Italian neorealism. I had a whole class on Orson Welles, another class on Hitchcock, feminism in film and theory. That's why I thought I was going to become a film critic because Indiana University had a great journalism school, and I wrote film reviews for my high school paper, so it just made sense to me. Now, at the same time, I was doing all kinds of other creative things, like acting in some plays at IU, and I was involved in a theater group where I wrote several plays and directed some plays. But the actual idea of making a real movie seemed like a fantasy.
Did you ever expect to be, like, in the place you are now as a director, or did you, like, think of yourself more as the movie critiquer?
I think when I moved to LA, I thought I would become a writer. Mm-hmm. Like, I really thought I was pretty good at writing. I had a couple classes in playwriting at IU, and my professor really liked my writing. Yeah. And at one point he said to me, if you would just write more, you might actually be able to make a living at this. And I think he was just, at the time, trying to get me to do my work because I was blowing off my script at the time, or the play at the time. And I took that as a sign, oh, well, maybe I am actually good at it. So when I moved to LA, I thought, I'll write and maybe I'll sell a screenplay. And I did do that when I worked in the mailroom at New Line. I was writing a bunch of stuff, and, nothing ever seemed to really go anywhere. But I ended up writing a short film that a friend of mine directed, and I ended up using that short film to apply to USC. Because that short film actually turned out pretty good. Yeah.
How different was Indiana and USC, like, transitioning into USC? What, like, did you have to adapt?
Well, at USC I was getting my MFA, which is a totally different situation. And again, it was film production. So we were it was a totally different situation from IU, because at IU it was watching movies and writing about movies. At USC, we were actually making movies all the time. And it was while I was making those movies that, again, I started to have some success. My first short film went to the New York Film Festival, and the second one I made at USC went to Sundance.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wow, I seem to be pretty good at this. So I left USC early.
Oh, you did?
I did. I didn't finish my MFA. I came very close, but I had started writing a screenplay, and I was also reading scripts at the same time. And I wrote a script based on one of my shorts at USC. And I thought, I'm going to get this movie made. Now I'm going to make a feature. And I ended up reading scripts for about 2.5, 3 more years. At the same time, trying to get this feature script out to people and trying to get it going. And I eventually met somebody with some money who wanted to learn how to produce, and he said, so if I pay for this, will you teach me how to produce?
Yeah.
Will I be a producer? We were like, sure. So he ended up financing the film, and we made it in 16 days, and then we took it to Sundance, and it was a big hit.
So what made you initially leave USC?
Well, I think at the time I was racking up student loans, and I thought I'd already gotten enough out of it. And I think I thought, I'm gonna be a filmmaker. My films are doing so well. There's no way they can ignore me. And it was hard. I mean, it was still 3 years of putting this movie together, but it's not until now, these days, that I reflect on that and realize that I was very lucky.
Yeah.
I was very lucky. And a lot of this, the film industry or television industry, entertainment in general, there's a little luck to it. There's definitely a little luck.
So, did you ever look back at that decision, and were you regretful or any way or nervous that you might have made the wrong decision? Did you have any what if moments?
At the time, I didn't. Nowadays, because I sometimes teach, and I think, it might not be bad to become tenure track as a professor, but in order to be tenure track, I would have to have my MFA completed. So there are some times where I'm like, should I have done that? But I am, I do love teaching, but I'm still constantly working on my projects.
Yeah.
So the teaching adds a little bit of stability to my life these days, because I'm making films that are not easily financed because they're about murdered atheists or young women thrown into basements. They're all true crime stories, and they're not exactly what you'd call commercial. But those are the stories I want to tell.
Yeah.
So I find it hard to try to just, put myself into some commercial film that I can't really get turned on over. I mean, that's what I tell my students is when you're working on a creative project, the most important thing is to really be turned on by it.
Yeah.
To really want to do it.
Your style, because American Crime was I think something that you were mostly proud of. I think you said that today. But Ella Enchanted is obviously much different than that.
Yeah.
So what is your style, and what inspired you?
I think if I were to describe it, it's bifurcated. If I were to describe it, I love things when they're very light, and I like things when they're very dark. I like the extremes, I think, for some reason. For me, it's hard to find the in-between.
So you don't really have one type of thing, it's just kind of whatever you're feeling at that moment?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's like I love Ingmar Bergman, but at the same time, I love John Waters and Tim Burton. So it either has to be kind of out there and campy, or totally twisted.
I think too, as a director, to have various likes for film and different
Yeah.
perspectives on things. It's really nice because then you can incorporate many different things in a film that could appeal to other people.
Oh,
which is-
definitely.
yeah.
That's one thing that with my film studies background that I think really served my filmmaking well, because I still to this day spend a lot of time watching mostly older films. I'm mostly looking for new ways of telling stories, but I'm oftentimes looking to the past, because a lot of contemporary film bores me. Although I do love that movie, The Witch. I love that movie. Did you guys see The Witch? It's so good.
Oh, I haven't.
Now, have any of you seen The Witch yet? You guys
I don't
don't
think
like
any of
horror
us
movies?
have.
That movie is so good. It is like the best movie I've seen in years. You know what it is, right?
I don't like scary movies usually.
Oh,
I'm a
you
scaredy
haven't?
cat.
It was kind of a big deal. Anyway, all my film students at DePaul love it.
What's it like teaching at DePaul? Because it's a much different environment, I think, than what maybe you're used to. What is it like?
Well, when I teach at DePaul, I'm teaching interns.
Oh, okay.
So it's a kind of a different situation. We have an office space on a studio lot,
Yeah.
Sunset Gower, in the middle of Hollywood. And so we bring the students in there. They get to drive on the lot. They get to
That's so exciting.
walk over to our classroom, and then I'll bring in guest speakers usually. Editors, cinematographers, writers, producers, sometimes we have people that work in marketing, various aspects of the industry. And then I just have like a very casual Q&A like we're doing now.
Yeah. I think that's
And
the best, too.
they love it because they love to hear all, no matter if their interests are, I may have a composer there and I might not have any people interested in music, but they'll still get something.
Right, exactly. Your favorite director, I think you said too, told you not to go into this field or to not do what you're doing now.
He's one of my favorite directors,
Okay.
John Waters. He definitely was one of my idols. Yeah.
So what made you overcome that and actually go into it? Was it just your childhood dream that was kind of pushing it, or what you just really love to do, like a passion that pushed it? Or
Yeah, I think so. I think I just, well, first of all, I've made that story sound much more dramatic. Obviously, when he said that, he was kind of joking.
yeah.
But he did say that, and I think he probably followed it up with, I'm just kidding, good luck. But
It's still something scary to hear as like a young
but
filmmaker.
it is scary to hear.
Yeah.
And believe me, a lot of the guests I bring in to speak to the DePaul students, they say the same thing. Like, if you go into the film industry, if you go into the entertainment industry, you better love it.
Yeah.
Because you better really be prepared, because it's not easy. None of it's very easy. So, but truly, I see it in my students. You either have this thing that makes you love it and really want to do it, and I see it in the students, and they end up staying there in LA, and they get jobs, and they're now part of that whole world. And but you've really got to have it in you and really want to do it.
What advice, besides having it in you, could you give to someone who's maybe uncertain of going into the field, or just nervous in general?
What other advice can I give? Well, I mean, one of my, let me think about this. You mean if they're nervous about it? Well,
Or maybe disadvantage, or not disadvantages, or problems, or inconveniences that might happen that they have to overcome. That might put them in a tough place or something. It's okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of I would say. And what do you mean? Do you mean whether they go to LA or not, or whether because you don't necessarily have to go to LA to do it. You can, I have some people ask me, well, should I stay in Chicago or should I go to LA? You know, there are plenty of great filmmakers that work out of the cities where they were born and raised. Richard Linklater, is a great filmmaker, works out of Austin, and that's where he was born and raised. And you can make great films anywhere. You can make great art anywhere. It's just a matter of finding a way to do it. So, you know, fear is a huge enemy.
Yeah.
It is something I have to deal with on a daily basis, writing, because writer's block, it's all about fear.
Yeah.
It's all about fear. So you have to look at it as an enemy that you have to defeat. And that's what I would say, is to look at fear as something that's trying to keep you from something that you need to get done, and face it and defeat it.
I like that. That was good. You answered it, so that's good. I'm trying to think.
I know. Was that yeah?
No,
I
think that answered it too. We talked about like kind of regret before, but could you talk about like the Mean Girls, and there was another movie, American Pie. Could you talk about that too, when that was pitched to you, and then you were like, if you don't want to, that's okay, but I just wanted to ask about that.
Well, no, I don't want.
That's okay, don't worry about that. It's okay.
That story's too boring. It's too involved. There's got to be a better story I can tell. What else? I guess I could tell that.
If you don't want to, that's okay.
I just hadn't thought about it in years, but somebody said, do you have any regrets? One of my regrets is that right after Sundance, right after my first feature premiered there, Billy's Hollywood Screen Kiss, I was sent a script by this executive at Universal. And I didn't even read it because I'd found out that Universal had the rights to the Archie comics.
Okay.
And I wanted to do a big musical version of Archie. And so I said, can I meet on Archie? And I went and met on that, and they said, yeah, let's do this. And I developed a script. I wrote a script and then worked with a New York playwright to rewrite it. But they never went ahead with the project. In the meantime, I finally picked up that script they sent over. And it was American Pie. And when I read it, I was like, oh no, this is going to be huge. I think I made a big mistake wanting to do a musical version of Archie. I should have done an American Pie. I can't believe I didn't read that script.
It's okay. I mean, it happens, and especially because you were going after something that you wanted to do too. I think that's
and it it all works out in the end.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, you know what? I may have read the script and been like, this is a gross out movie. This is for somebody else. That's not really my style. Because it really isn't my style.
Yeah.
I don't really like to do that kind of. I think it's funny, but it's not really my style. It's either a musical or it's a murder. That's me.
Those are very different too.
Yeah.
What's your favorite musical or like murder horror
My
movie?
favorite musical is definitely Singing in the Rain, I think. I love Singing in the Rain.
We saw that last year. We know one.
We did. Yeah, that's a great film. And my favorite murder, probably Psycho's an easy one.
Yeah.
I love Psycho. What's another good one? There's a lot of good murders. There's a lot of good dark movies.
Do you watch like murder mystery like shows?
I love Investigation Discovery.
Yes, so
I'm addicted to Investigation Discovery. It's really kind of awful because that is the truth of the matter. Either I'm watching some bad melodrama on Turner Classic Movies in bed at night, or I'm watching somebody get murdered on Investigation Discovery.
Yeah.
But usually it's Investigation Discovery.
Yeah,
I love
I find that really
love
interesting
those shows.
too.
Oh my God, Evil Lives Here. Have you watched that one?
No, I
That's
haven't.
a good show. I know the shows by name. I know the ones that are really good and the ones that are bad. I love Investigation Discovery.
How long does it take you to like come up with a script or do pre-production? How long is usually the process?
Oh, to basically to develop a script?
Yeah.
It depends. It depends. An American Crime actually came rather quickly. Mm-hmm. It was the first time I was working with this writing partner who I've worked with a couple times since, Irene Turner, and we spent a few weeks meeting for a few hours, every day, but not intensely, but we kind of put together an outline, and then we went to the desert and we kind of typed, just went to work on it and finished it in a week, the first draft. Mm-hmm. Now then you take a couple weeks away from it, and then we sent it to a couple friends and got some notes, and then we spent, maybe another month or two rewriting it. But that one came.
That was a true story, right?
That
was near your hometown?
Yeah, that was based on a true story. This last one, The Most Hated Woman in America, the initial draft probably took a couple months because, again, we were working with a studio and had with Lifetime Networks at the time and had specific directives of what they wanted out of it. So we probably did that draft in a couple months, and then we had to rewrite it a few times for them. Yeah. That probably took, I don't know, six to 8 months. And then when they didn't do it, it was a lot of me. Well, we did one major draft, but then it was years of me just kind of coming back to it and tweaking it. I probably did 40 drafts on that script. Irene dropped out at one point, and I was just kind of whipping drafts out whenever they needed to be done.
Did you ever get comments from someone that you necessarily didn't agree with the comment? How did you handle that? If they were reading or editing your script, did you ever get that and you're like, no, I don't want to do that, but how did you handle that? Just let it go to the side and do whatever you want to do?
Yeah, you get notes a lot when you're working with a network or a studio. You'll always get notes.
Yeah.
And my first reaction is, these are terrible. But then I'll come back to them a few hours later, and if I read them a bit more carefully, I can infer things.
Right.
They may say one thing, but then you realize, oh, maybe they mean something else, and maybe this will make it better. Some of the stuff I will just ignore.
Yeah.
And then if they bring it up again, I might ignore it one more time, and then if they bring it up again, then I might say, well, this is why I don't think you're right. But half the time when you ignore it, they don't even notice.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Any advice, stories, or comments, or anything?
No, I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you guys for having me here, and I wish everyone best of luck in their futures.
Thank you for coming here to talk to us.
Thanks.
It's been really nice.
Good.
Thank you.
All right.